AM 1240 and 95.3 FM, WJON. It's Health Matters, brought to you by Rejuv Medical. My guest today is Chief Integration Officer Garrett Ewers from Rejuv Medical. Hey, Garrett, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
All right, so we're going to talk about the pandemic 15, the quarantine 15. Either way, it's putting on weight during the quarantine, and we're pretty much past that now, or for the most part, things are opened up. We feel like we're in a better position now than we were, say, a year ago. Um, Garrett, when it comes to these types of things where people have added weight, sometimes in Minnesota it's because of the winter. Um, it's certainly a desire to try to get over it and try to get back on track to a point where you can get back to that weight that you're more comfortable with, and probably a healthier weight too. How do we get over this? How do you get past that 15 to 20 pounds or maybe even more that you put on?
Yeah, you bring up a really good point, and I never really even thought about that. Minnesotans are kind of used to putting on that winter weight, so the quarantine 15 um, wasn't as big of a deal to us, except in Minnesota, maybe we started hit that quarantine 30, just because we had all that added pressure, the stress of what was going on, and our need to stay at home and be quarantined for a little bit longer than we wanted to. But there's a lot of ways to address this, and it really comes down to making sure that you have a plan and a lifestyle to help you achieve the goals that you want to achieve. Now that we know that it's going to be nice and hot, well, it's been hot now for the last couple of weeks, but we want to get out into the water, we want to get out into the gardens and all of that. And it's looking at how to create an exercise plan and how to create a nutrition plan that will help us achieve the goals that we want to achieve long term.
Because it's the combination. You have to have an exercise plan. You have to have a diet plan to be able to get rid of that 15 to 20 pounds you want to get rid of.
Absolutely. Though, as the saying goes, you can't outwork bad nutrition. So the nutrition is really 80 to 90% of what's going to happen with this, and that has to get back to getting out, making sure we're selecting great groceries, coming up with new lists. The good thing about that happened through quarantine, though, was a lot of people started to cook for themselves again, and they started to get into the kitchen. Now it's going, okay, how can we take those skills that we took during making all that comfort food and change it into some more healthy food options for us to be more sustainable long term with the goals that we want to achieve?
Are there some simple things that you can just cut out of your diet? I suppose for every person it's going to be different, but some things that you suggest that, okay, no more snacking or stop drinking your calories or something like that.
Absolutely. No matter what nutrition program that you're going to be on, there's a couple tried and true methods of doing this. One of them is getting rid of processed foods. And by processed foods, we mean foods that were prepared for you to eat already. So this could be anything from Rice Krispie bars to pre-made meals that you're going to be picking up at the grocery store that has a lot of refined sugars, complex carbohydrates, and all of those types of things that we really want to get back to the root of food. So if you can go farm to table, awesome. You just want to use those base ingredients and create the food that you really want to have in the end. And that gets down to what a lot of people refer to as clean eating. Clean eating just means getting rid of a lot of those processed foods. Beyond that, the next thing is take a look at what you are drinking throughout the day and stop drinking your calories, as you mentioned. A lot of us might go to Starbucks in the morning and get a orange frappuccino or something like that. You look at the ingredients into it and you look at the calories, the sugar content in there, and those can just be gut bombs in the end. Yes, they taste good. You think you need all that sugar to go, but you really don't. And it comes down to just basic label reading, looking at the back of the label of anything that you're purchasing, and you want to look for a couple big things. You want to look at the saturated fat content. You want to look at the calorie content, but also look at the sugar content, and especially the added sugar that gets put into a lot of stuff. When we start looking at things like low fat or fat free food, often that's substituted by something else, and that's oftentimes is going to be sugar. So if we can really watch our sugar intake, we can really make really far strides with any of the weight loss goals that we want to make happen, or any of the athletic goals that we want to happen.
So oftentimes, if it says fat free on it, they're going to add sugar to it, like you said, and that's just going to be adding that same fat. So you're really not going to do yourself any good by having the fat free stuff oftentimes.
Correct. And we've been trained in our mentality to think that fat is bad. Fat is not bad. Fat is something that our body does need. It does great on it. So there's no need to cut it out, but it really comes down to that sugar content. And yes, you don't want to have all the fatty foods out there. You want to have some lean meats, lots of fruits and vegetables, and those types of items, but making sure that it's balanced. But I can tell you what, number one thing I would probably look out for is sugar content in your foods and your beverages to see immediate weight loss.
My guest today is Chief Integration Officer Garrett Ewers from Rejuv Medical. Today we're talking about the Pandemic 15. Some of you might be able to relate to this. Maybe you're trying to get rid of it now. We'll talk more about this on Health Matters coming up in just a moment. AM 1240 and 95.3 FM, WJON, it's Health Matters, brought to you by Rejuv Medical. My guest today is Chief Integration Officer Garrett Ewers, Rejuv Medical. Today talking about trying to get rid of that Pandemic 15. That weight you put on during the pandemic, and now we're into the summer, and you probably are like, yeah, I want to get outside and maybe not wear as much because it's hot and it's beneficial. But if that stuff doesn't fit, or you don't want to show as much skin, that it could be a problem. But you can solve that, right, Garrett? I mean, this is what you do on a daily basis, is you try to solve those issues for people.
Absolutely. And it's looking at where people are having those issues. And the first thing we do is we just tell people do some self-examination. Why do you think that you put on extra weight during this? Did you start drinking a little bit more alcohol? Were you less active? The types of food that you had. And it's really looking at that and saying, okay, yes, I do eat more. I maybe have a couple more beers, or I got into craft beer as a hobby for something to do during the quarantine time. And then going, okay, those are the things that changed. Let's just change some of those items back, or cut back on some stuff, or make up for it. So if you do like to, let's just say it is craft beer that you got into, well, that's going to be a couple extra calories that are going into your body during the day. So you can do one thing to try to restrict, but I would still eat good food and still get a good, decent calorie intake. But now you have to make sure that you're going to get a little bit more exercise during the week. And now that restrictions have lifted, the parks are open, the pools are open, everything is back open again, and we need to start moving. And that's going to be the most important aspect of what we do, is making sure that we look and see how, in a safe manner, we can get back into an activity of some sort. Get into a softball league. There's volleyball leagues. There's other stuff that you can be around people again and be active. But if you want to do it on your own, make sure to start doing some simple things like go on some hiking trails, go for a walk each day, build up to that aspect to where you can go from walking to running, or biking. There's great activities, especially during the summer in Minnesota, that you can take full advantage of, have fun, while not trying to make it a chore for yourself.
One of the things that I guess I've noticed on a pretty regular basis, Garrett, is that you rarely see somebody who's heavy who's running. If you're a runner and you've done it somewhat consistently, you lose weight. Is there something about being a runner that can, along with the diet, I'm sure that has to go with it, because you've mentioned that that's a big part of it, that if you're a runner, that you can really cut weight? Is that something that you've seen with your clients that is successful along with the diet changes?
Yeah, running's just the most simple way for people to be active. It really comes down to making sure you have a healthy balance of resistance training as well as that anaerobic training, to where you can go for like runs and bike rides. Running's great for you because it does burn a lot of calories. Just the shaking on your body actually breaks up some of that fat, so it allows your body to release it a little bit. But there's lots of ways to do it. The one thing to make sure, though, is if all you're doing is running, your body's going to adjust to that, and it's going to start preparing for you to be able to run well. and you're going to become very efficient at it. But then it's going to be much harder to use that to accomplish weight loss goals. So if you are looking for true weight loss, you want to do a mixture of different activities. So we call it shock and awe for the body. Don't let the body know what's going to happen. So just like if you're going to be running, pick different paths, different lengths, different times that you're going to be doing, but also make sure you get some resistance training in there, some HIIT training, go take a yoga class. All these types of things is the more you can actually kind of switch it up for your body, the easier it is for you to hit some of these goals that you're looking for.
So don't run every day is what you're saying.
No, I'm also not saying don't not run every day. I mean, it's still good exercise, but maybe you're going to, like for me, I try to run every day, a couple miles, but there's going to be some days where I run more and do less weights. And then there's going to be days where I really hardly run at all, but I do a little bit more in the weight room at that point.
What do you find is easier, to do the weight room stuff before you run, or do you try to mix up when you do those things, giving yourself some time in between?
Um, it depends on what you're going to want to do for your weights. If you're going to lift heavy, you're probably going to do any anaerobic exercise afterwards. Just because if you want to lift heavy, you want all that energy. Now, if you're going to lift light and just do some toning, you can definitely do that after you get a small run in or something like that. So it's going to be a personal preference type. I do suggest going for a short run just to warm up the body. It could be a walk and then into a run, but try to do that for about 6 to 8 minutes at least, and use that as your warm up. So when you do want to lift weights, your body's a little bit more warmed up. You don't have to do as much time stretching, because that's what the warm up was really for.
Should there be a cool down then at the end?
Yes. So anytime you are going to try to work out, doing a cool down at the end allows you to kind of flush out the system a little bit more. It can be used as a nice little stretch for the body. But really that cool down is just so we're not trying to make a sudden change with the body, going from really active and then just into a sedentary. If you can do that cool down, you're going to have a little bit better chance of avoiding stuff like cramps and bruises and those types of things.
Garrett Ewers, Chief Integration Officer, Rejuv Medical, is my guest today. We're talking about losing the pandemic 15. Back with more Health Matters after this. AM 1240 and 95.3 FM, WJON, it's Health Matters, brought to you by Rejuv Medical. My guest today is Chief Integration Officer Garrett Ewers from Rejuv. Today we're talking about losing the pandemic 15. Something that a lot of people are wanting to do. It's easier said than done. Weight loss is not easy. Because there's a lot of things that go into it, right, Garrett? I mean, you understand that if someone is going to make that kind of change, so many different aspects of their life have to change.
Yeah, weight loss is a common issue facing Americans right now. Most of it is because we follow the standard American diet, or what we call the SAD diet, which is full of, like I said, a lot of those processed foods. But what's really important when you're looking at making a change and trying to do weight loss especially is, one, you come up with a plan. Two, you talk to some people that are familiar in that area, whether it's professional or just an amateur that really has that as a passion in their life. And number three is go in and see a knowledgeable healthcare professional that knows what they're talking about when they're talking about weight loss. Not just your average doctor or nurse or anything like that. Some of them don't have a lot of nutritional education behind them. There's doctors and there's healthcare professionals that really put a lot of time and effort into knowing about nutrition and what it does in your body. So if you're looking for a weight loss, you don't want to just take that average stuff that everybody can get right off the internet. You want to talk to somebody that can look at you as an individual and say, okay, this is what you should probably be doing, or this is a great place to start, and then reevaluate and test to see if that's the right direction that you should be going, or if there needs to be adjustments.
You mentioned the American diet. I think it's interesting is because we are very sugar oriented, and so many things that we have sugar in it, whether we know it or not. because some people are going to read the ingredients, others aren't. And sometimes if you don't, you'll find out that things are way more sugary than they thought they were. I always thought that yogurt was one of those. I'm like, man, yogurt's supposed to be really good for you. Then I find out that there's so many yogurts that have so much sugar in them. I'm like, no wonder why they taste so darn good.
Absolutely. Yogurt, especially when people started looking at yogurts as great nutrition, and they are very nutritious. They've got probiotics that are great for the body. But what happened is they started looking at these yogurts and started going, okay, I want a non-fat yogurt. Well, if you have a non-fat yogurt, you have no flavor. So what do? They replace the fat with sugar, and then everyone's like, okay, it has low fat or no fat, and I'm getting my intake in, and I'm getting my dairy in, I'm getting my probiotics in. But then they're taking heaping mounds of sugar. I mean, one little container of yogurt could have 35 grams of sugar in it, and that's way too much sugar. That's like drinking a Mountain Dew. So what we want to really look at is just look at those labels and start reading them, and you're going to quickly find out that there's a lot of sugar and there's a lot of other additives in it. When you look at labels, basic thing is look at it, and the less ingredients, the better for you. And then know that it's typically listed in order of portions in there. So if sugar is listed as number 1 or number 2 on the ingredients list, that means there's a lot of sugar in there. It's made basically of sugar. So you really want to look at that ingredient label and see what's happening in there. Try to go for the least amount possible. And then look at that whole thing between how much added sugar is in there and how is that making up for the fats.
So is there yogurts that don't have either sugar or fat in them?
I don't. They would be very disgusting. But basic, go for like a Greek yogurt. I'm trying to think of the one that I really like, but I really like Greek yogurt because it has a good amount of protein in there also. But you can get some with very low contents of sugar and low contents of fat, but there are some different flavoring agents in there. So you might get a vanilla bean extract in there of some sort, and that's going to make up for some of that low amounts of fat and low amounts of sugar in there.
So the vanilla one is the one I've kind of gravitated toward because plain yogurt, like you said, disgusting. It is really bad. It is just not good. Is vanilla okay? I mean, are you mainly getting nutritious stuff without all the sugar and fat?
Yeah, you can have plenty of flavored yogurts out there or flavored foods out there. You just want to look to see where the flavor is coming from. Doing something like an extract is decent. Some will use like stevia or something, different solution than just normal processed sugar. So there's different types of sugar. Some are going to be a little bit healthier. Some might just use honey as a flavor agent, which is, again, honey can be very flavorful, and it can be very healthy for you also.
Garrett, if people are looking for something that you could use for snack that is not going to be bad for you, are nuts, almonds, things like that good ideas?
Yes. Most nuts and almonds are going to be good for you, or legumes, as they call them. Those are typically going to be good for you. But mix it up. Have legumes, and then for another snack throughout the day, have something like a banana or an apple. But even if you're trying to make big goals, you have to look at your whole nutrition panel and really see what's happening, because having a Honeycrisp apple versus a Gala apple is very different, because that Gala apple is going to have a lot less sugar content than that Honeycrisp.
Garrett Ewers, Chief Integration Officer, Rejuv Medical, is my guest today. We're talking about losing the pandemic 15. Back in just a moment with more. AM 1240 and 95.3 FM, WJON. My guest today is Chief Integration Officer Garrett Ewers, Rejuv Medical. Talking about losing the pandemic 15. Okay, let's get to a point now where we're the call to action. Okay, you can talk, and talk is cheap, and we certainly have, you've given a lot of good ideas about how people can do things. But if you want to get started today, you're like, I want to lose that pandemic 15, you're inspired to do it. What are your suggestions?
So a lot of different ways that you can go with it. The cheapest way is go onto Google and find a plan on there. There's so much free education on nutrition and exercise plans that you can really get some decent ones. And that's if you know that you can be self-motivated and hold yourself accountable. And that's easy enough as they're going to give you a meal plan and they're going to give you a workout plan. I mean, just type in couch to 5K plan and you'll have a running plan for throughout the day. And some of them will even include some basic calisthenics or things like push-ups and jumping jacks that you can do at home without a lot of extra equipment. So that's going to be great. You should probably be looking to lose anywhere from 1 to 3 pounds a week, depending on how heavy you are. Of course, if you are very large, if you're over 200 pounds, over 250, you can lose more per week than somebody that is 150 pounds and trying to lose some. So you always have to keep that in mind. But if you are somebody who wants to take it a little bit more serious or knows that you need that accountability, that's when you just have to look for a coach of some sort. And typically that's going to be somebody like an athletic trainer or a personal trainer of some sort. Just like we have here at Rejuv Medical. We definitely have personal trainers that focus on weight loss. We've got trainers that focus on athletic capabilities, but getting somebody who can actually hold you accountable and find the solutions when you hit your plateaus. So that's one thing unique about having a medical fitness trainer is when you start to hit those plateaus, they can go, okay, how about we go and have a metabolic test or go see a functional medicine practitioner to see, hey, what's really going on with your body? So your athletic training and your nutrition are not combating what's actually going on inside of your body internally with your hormones and everything. So it can be as simple as going onto Google, getting a free program and holding yourself accountable to the surefire win of getting a coach or an expert in that area to help take you through that area.
Garrett, why should we go at a slower pace in regards to the weight loss?
Couple of really key points on that one is one, if you start to lose weight too fast, especially if you gained way too much, you're actually going to start to develop saggy skins and stuff like that, that you're almost going to regret losing some of that weight. And there's ways to fix that afterwards. But the most important reason of trying not to lose it too fast is it can be damage to your body, can be very unhealthy for you, and it's mostly unsustainable at that point. So you've got those people that would go, okay, I'm going to lose 100 pounds in 6 months. There's ways to do that. There's very good ways to do that, but there's also those places that just go, I'm going to starve myself. I'm going to go into deficiencies. And what that does is it starts to hurt your body, because if you're not getting the right amount of hydration into your body, if you're not getting the right types of nutrients into your body, it actually eats away the muscle versus eating away the fat. And that's what you don't want. You want to get rid of the fat and keep the muscle so you can stay nice and strong and your bones stay nice and hard.
Garrett, if people want to lose 15 pounds, like kind of the focus here, if it's 15 pounds approximately that you gained that you want to get rid of, what is a realistic expectation? How soon can you expect to get rid of that? If you're on a plan with Rejuv or you're going off a plan that's going to be successful?
A dedicated person should be able to get rid of 15 pounds in a month. Of course, remember, sometimes when you start working out, you actually gain some weight because you're gaining muscle. But if you do it right, a month is an easy way to get rid of 15 pounds. That's 6 to 8 weeks is very doable.
So when do you start seeing a difference? And is there a point where it gets hard because of the transition you're making? Maybe that getting hard starts right at the beginning.
So it's going to be very different for everybody. And what's really can trip some people up is it's very different for men versus women. Typically, if men start getting onto a nutrition program and they start exercising a little bit, they're going to be able to hit that weight loss a little bit sooner than females just because of how the bodies work. So that can trip some people up. And then I kind of forgot where you're going with that.
Right. It's one of those, I think the frustration, I'm just saying that if you get frustrated at the beginning on how to overcome that frustration and try to push through, do you have any suggestions? I mean, if you are coaching someone that is dealing with that frustration, maybe even in the first week of this whole new plan, how can they overcome it?
So frustrations are definitely going to happen throughout anybody's journey for weight loss. And it's those things where you need to break through. And that's why it's important to have accountability in your life, whether it's a spouse, a friend, or a professional that's helping you along the way to make sure to keep you encouraged. And no, change is going to come. It's just that sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes it just comes in chunks. You could be losing three pounds a week for 5 weeks straight, and all of a sudden you go up 3 pounds. You have to look at it in the long term, not in the short term windows, because if you just stick to it, by the time you look back, you're going to say, wow, I didn't even realize that I made it this far because I've been looking at it in such a short segment of time. Everything that you want to do when you're talking about goals should be long term. It should be small term goals that build into those long ones.
Garrett, if people want to get some assistance, get some help from Rejuv Medical, how can they contact you there?
Just come on in or just reach out to our front desk and they will put you in contact with one of our integration specialists, and they will kind of just ask you what type of goals you have, and we'll give you some suggestions and then have you come in just for a free consult.
Excellent. Garrett, thank you as always. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Thank you a lot.
That's Garrett Ewers. He is the Chief Integration Officer of Rejuv Medical. This has been Health Matters on WJON, brought to you by Rejuv. We return next week at this time.